Marie Most, and I live at 33 Amsterdam Road,
Could you spell your last name, please?
M-O-S-T.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I've been a teacher for 18 years, and one thing that I've learned is that nobody, no matter how old you are, you don't like to be told what you can't do. So I'm here to tell Mr. Prisco a couple of things he can do. You can give the neighborhood back their buffer. When I first moved to Amsterdam Road in 2008, there was a wide natural buffer of trees and shrubs that has slowly been removed without permission. Now, in the late fall, winter, and spring, I have a completely unobstructed view of the cars parked on the property and of Jericho Turnpike. Buffers were created for a reason, and they are important. The buffer provided our community with a quality of life that we deserve as residents of Smithtown. We are entitled to a clean, safe, and quiet neighborhood. You can get the property properly zoned. As of today, the property is in violation of several zoning ordinances. Parking vehicles, storing piles of mulch and wood chips, ripping down the buffer are all things Mr. Prisco has been in violation for years and has failed to remedy. You can respect your neighbors. In essence, we are neighbors with reliable tree, but this business has no regard for its neighbors. If you drive around our neighborhood, you will see house after house of well-manicured lawns and gardens, well-maintained properties, and homeowners that take great pride in the appearance of their homes. Mr. Prisco's plans of increasing storage of cars and trucks, increasing noise, increasing pollution, increasing storage of materials he does not have permission to store, decreasing safety for my children, and completely eliminating the few trees left as a buffer will completely destroy my family's neighborhood. Total disregard for our shared community is not the way to run a business or a way to treat your neighbors. Thank you.
Your name and address, please.
Arthur Most, 33 Amsterdam.
Same spelling?
That's my wife, Anne Marie.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth and the whole truth?
I do. All right, first, I'd like to thank the board again for another opportunity. I did speak last time about the buffer zone in particular. You know, I'd also like to thank the residents for coming up a second time and showing the support of this belief and creating an awareness of what is going on with this business. So instead of rehashing what I said last time, I'm going to really clarify a few things and follow up on what has changed since our last meeting just 30 days ago. You know, first thing, well, ironically enough, this morning I was bringing out my garbage at about 7:25. And as I'm putting my bags down, I hear some banging and clanging and heavy machinery not more than 20 feet from me. I happen to be at the end of my driveway. See, my mailbox is on Amsterdam Road. My driveway is on Jennifer Court. If I was to keep driving, my end of my driveway is no more than, I'm on the side of the sump, so I'm no more than 30 feet from the subject property. So as I'm putting down my garbage bags, I hear this banging, clanging, and all this noise. So what I did was I ran back into my house, and I grabbed my phone, and I went down there, and I actually taped it. So my wife will just play this really quickly. I don't know the way of
It's not
submitting this.
We have no way to put it on the record, so unless we can keep this.
You want to keep my iPad?
Keep my phone.
But you can
If there's an email address, we could send it to you.
One of the things that I just want to point out is I understand we understand what may be going on, but we have an application before us, and that's what we're supposed to be weighing in on. And obviously, we can take all this into consideration, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the 5 considerations that we're supposed to stick to. So it makes it.
But it does, because and I'll correct you on why it does matter. Is that if somebody doesn't respect, and again, and that I believe he's in this town sump, bulldozing down bushes in there as recently as this morning. So my concern as a citizen and part of the member of the community is that if he doesn't respect, even now, you would think he's under watch and he would be under best behavior. There's a disregard for the community, a complete and utter disregard.
Right.
That is why I am concerned. I am the closest person to this. I wake up every morning hearing this. So, if you please.
As a board, we certainly understand your frustration and are sympathetic to it. But if you could contact, like I said before, DEC, Public Safety, DEW, any one of those entities, are the ones that, while that's going on, that's who you want to talk to, because that's who, obviously.
If you watch the video, you'll see how they
I
dissipate.
believe you.
They
There's
dissipate
nothing
quickly.
that this board can do.
I invite you to watch the video if you can. I would like an email address to send it to somebody to put it onto the record. So, all right, I will continue. You know, there's a credibility issue here, and that's the concern. So when you give an inch, they take a mile. That's really the point that I'm trying to say. All right. So I do want to clarify a couple of things. And obviously, the buffer zone has been removed over the past number of years since we moved in. So what I did was I looked up a couple definitions. So a definition of a buffer is something that serves as a protective barrier. And I think this is important. Definition of air is a mixture of nitrogen, oxygen, and minute gases that surrounds the Earth in its form and forms its atmosphere. The problem is the buffer zone is air, and you could see right through it. And that's the issue here, is that it doesn't matter, even if it's 20, 30 feet away, there's nothing in between. There's nothing, it's clear. As soon as it hits late fall, you see everything. You go around the corner, and you see the glint of 40 windshields shining into your eyes. So, again, there's a direct contradiction to the natural cause of what a buffer zone needs to be and what it is today. So in addition to the eyesore, we mentioned that there's dangers, that there's no fence. Any child could just walk and fall down into this subject property, which up until this morning had a big mulch pit right there at the edge of the property line. All right, I'm almost done. We need sight and sound protection from this business, because this business doesn't, again, have regard for noise and visual pollution that it's producing to the neighborhood. So what I implore you is, to the board, put up that wall. We need a wall or protection for seasons to protect us from the sight and the sounds that this business creates. So again, if anyone didn't have a physical inspection of the property, I invite you to go to it and look at it and really say, how does this look in the spring? And how does this look in the winter, the other half of the year? And you'll see that, the deterioration of it. So one of the things that I just wanted to submit to the board, just to have on record something that's new, is we located pictures from May 11th of 2011, which shows cars. So this has been over 2 years. There's been some rumors that they were trying to help out with some storms, like Sandy car. This has been here for years. So, all right. We're counting on you, the zoning board, to properly enforce your fiduciary responsibility in protecting the integrity of our community, and to respond to the non-threat of the Business Legal Counsel in the last meeting that they could do much worse with this property. I am already threatened and scared of what has been transpiring the past 5 years that I've lived in my residence. This is getting worse, and the community stands united against this. And to quote a song from when I was a kid, we are not going to take it anymore.
Thank you. Don't forget your iPod. Thank you.
Is there an email address I could submit this?
I don't know if we have the ability to make a digital file part of the
What is the
record.
medium?
It's a quick,
But what is it? Is it a movie of some sort? I wouldn't show it to me if I were you.
okay.
I'm not on the board, but if the board votes in your favor and you're submitting evidence that they can't discuss or prove to the court was wrong or anything,
Okay.
you're only helping them out, not yourself.
Okay.
But if there's a medium, I mean, if it is something that your opponent and a judge could all look at and say, yeah, this is what you say or it's not what you say, there's probably a method, but you have to submit it in something that's part of the record.
If you tell me how, I will do it.
The only concern I have is
Can I
that
make
it
a
really
big
doesn't,
PPP?
if it doesn't address what we're actually looking at, it doesn't help. In any event, it only hurts. We have to look at the five consider, and when you speak, you have to speak into the mic, otherwise you're not on the record. the point I'm trying to make is that if it doesn't directly relate to the variances or what they're asking for, if it goes to character, that's not one of the considerations that we can look at, so it doesn't help you anyway.
I agree. It obviously has an undesirable change as he's ripping down additional buffer zone that may or may not
But
be his
that's the
property.
application, not what he
Okay.
did this morning.
Okay. I'm reading the 5 things, so, all right.
I'm just trying to
understand.
be realistic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Name and address, please.
Scott McKegg, MCCAIG, 47 Amsterdam Road.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth and the whole truth?
I do. Before I begin, I have a petition signed by 129 local residents opposing the variance approval. Can I submit this?
You turn it.
My initial comments originally were pertaining to the environmental issues relative to an auto repair shop, but in light of time and the number of people that want to speak, and as you indicated, this is really not the body that evaluates those things, I'll make my comments brief. Mr. Tremarco mentioned in his initial comments, he mentioned Gatsby Pool Contractor located further down the road on Jericho and Turnpike, and I would recommend any of the town board members to go visit Gatsby Pools. It's a wonderfully landscaped, well-manicured commercial business, and from what I understand, Mr. Gatsby is a model neighbor, friendly to all the neighbors in the residences behind him. So I think if we want to use that as a guide, we should use that. So again, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Patty Travato, 37 Amsterdam.
Spelling?
Trovato.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay.
On October 27, 2003, there was a cease and stop work order put on 927 West Jericho Turnpike property, which I have the letter from the building department here to show you. I called the town attorney, the planning department, the building department to find out the status since it is 2013. I have gotten no answer. Has the cease work order been lifted, and if so, when? Does Mr. Prisco have a valid certificate of occupancy for this property? Because in the letter, it states that you do need one to operate on the property. My feeling that is Mr. Prisco has operated on this property for 10 years now without any approved site plan and shows blatant disregard to the zoning laws of Smithtown, and now he comes to the BZA for special exemptions. We, the residents of Amsterdam Road and Jennifer Road, are horrified that this is even being entertained. Follow the zoning laws from the start and show you are an upstanding businessman, and then ask for special exceptions. If the board is to approve any of the 8 zoning changes, where will this leave the residents in the future? We'll be back here again, fighting, calling public safety, who we've done, every one of us, this week, and they do nothing. There is no assurance that Mr. Prisco will follow the new zoning if granted. We do not want any trucks being stored on the back of the property, nor do we want any mulch material stored in any manner, and certainly we do not want our buffer zone decreased. We are not opposed to having a business on this property, but it is this business that we have a problem with. We have no problem with Morwood Shopping Center, McDonald's, CVS, or any other, but they all work within the guideline of the zoning. If any variances are approved, what will be the timeline? Will he be able to continue operations while making his revisions? At this point, we would like the board to have consideration for the residents and say no to any of these changes. We, the residents, need to follow zoning laws, and if we don't, we have inspections at our homes, fines applied to us. Shouldn't this be the same for a business? All of us should follow zoning laws before any exceptions are even considered. How can we reward this businessman who has not complied in 10 years? Thank you.
Real quick, you asked a couple questions in there. One of them had to do with the CO, and another one I think had to do with the timeline.
Yep.
I don't know who would be best to answer.
Was the question, does he have a CO or does he need a CO?
Well, in the letter stated here in 2003, operations on the site can only resume when you have in your possession a valid certificate of occupancy for the change in use for existing structure and uses. This is from you guys, from the Smithtown.
Probably from the building department, I presume.
From the chief building officer, yep, chief building inspector.
Right.
I've called, I've gotten no answers.
But the question is, if the question is, do they have a CO? I mean, certainly I don't
Well,
know.
the first question is there a cease, has it been lifted?
Planning doesn't do, we couldn't answer that. That would be a public safety
no,
or
you-
town attorney question.
I've called every single one of them.
But I mean, the agencies that go to district court every Tuesday is the town attorney's office, public
Yes.
safety, and the building department.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that keep files
Yes.
on these things.
Mhm.
Planning, we don't know what's going on the court dockets every week. We don't do enforcement.
So is there a CO?
I couldn't swear to it.
They're two different departments. The building department and the planning department act independently, so probably, if you've called and haven't gotten an answer, it might be best to send an email or a letter and
Yeah, I mean, I
or
would
even go
offer
to
an
town hall
opinion.
and see if you could talk to the liaison
Mm-hmm.
for the building department and see if they can get an answer for you.
Okay. But in the meantime, he's allowed to work on this property if not?
If
That's-
there's a
that's-
cease and desist, I don't believe so, but I wouldn't know.
Okay.
We all have opinions on that, but it's
Uh-huh.
the town attorney and courts and things like that whose opinions matter more. The question about how long would they have to take to get into compliance? Sometimes boards of appeals, if they approve something, they do that you must, and not only boards of appeals, the state DEC and other agencies sometimes give timelines to say, gee, you're not in compliance today, you have to meet certain milestones. They have to be reasonable, though. You can't say whatever reasonable is, whatever
Mhm.
that is.
So there's no answer there, I don't think.
I got you. Thank you.
Your name and address, please?
Dean Salerno, 37 Amsterdam Road,
You got the spelling in there?
S-A-L-E-R-N-O.
Raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have a couple of comments. Most of the stuff that was in my letter has been covered by all the other people.
We appreciate that.
I have just a couple of questions. Who's going to govern the property for the storage? You said he's not allowed to store certain things in those bins. Who's going to say what's in the bins? Especially if you say, okay, you got bins, but they're closed. Who's going to say what's in those bins? How are we supposed to know that? It could be 2 years go by until somebody finally goes back there and looks and says, you know what? For 2 years, he's been storing bad, illegal materials. Another question is how do we stop him from using the sump as well as his property? Because I've been on that property walking. I walk my dog. I walk up the street, and many times I've seen through the bushes his trucks backing up into the sump and dumping material.
I believe one of the requirements of any site plan would be a fence, but Dave could.
Also, their plan shows that they're proposing to put up a fence, is all.
Right.
Okay, so there'll be a fence.
Right.
Okay. Another question is, you said he can store trucks on the property, but who's to say what he's storing inside of the trucks as well? I mean, I've seen a lot, his trucks, he's got a lot of open trucks. He could have material in there and just leave it there and never ever move the truck, especially if he's got a truck that's been dented, and you said he's allowed to use that in case of emergency for repair work. You can just leave a truck there with a whole bunch of mulch in it. It only takes a few days in this heat for the mulch to start to smell, and that does travel right up to our property. One more question. That's pretty much it. The other thing else was covered.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next. Name and address, please.
Tim McLaughlin, 5 Jennifer Road,
Just
Smithtown.
spell your last name, please.
MC capital L O U G H L I N.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth and the whole truth?
I do. Whoops. Hold on. I have some questions. I'm just wondering whether or not a trucking station is going to be defined specifically. Do's and don'ts, what types of trucks, hours of operation.
I believe trucking station is defined in the ordinance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's broad, though. It's any property that's used for the parking or storage or servicing of 4 or more commercial vehicles.
So could it be a dump truck? Could it be a garbage truck?
I don't think the ordinance gets that specific.
Because I'd like to know, I'd
We-
like to
we
see
can certainly
specifics. I'd like to see some specifics, types of trucks, whether or not they're running on diesel, if they're going to be sitting around idling for periods of time, as they do in some stores like Home Depot, where there's been issues, plus the environmental impact of having a diesel truck run for a couple hours while it's idling, waiting to be unloaded or loaded, depending on the case. So I like a clear definition of what a trucking station is. You know, I have concerns for the past 10 years or so. A lot of material has been dumped on the property in the back. Over the years, it's been bulldozed. The grade of the property has already been noted, has been built up 4 to 5 feet. What I like to see happen is I'd like to see most of that material removed and the grade brought back down to Jericho, aligned with the rest of the commercial businesses along, excuse me, along Jericho. And if I'd like the material to make sure that it's not environmentally dangerous, because we have cars and trucks that have been sitting on there for a couple of years now, and you probably haven't heard from the residents in this room up until now because we've been pretty tolerant. But I looked directly at the property, well, at an angle, and the grade has been getting higher. There was originally cars being stored in the back after most of the trees that were there have been taken down, and now there's trucks back there. So my concern is, you know, what is my view going to be? So I'd like the grade of the property returned back to its original state, which was level with Jericho, which would help the property or the business owner bring down any cars he might be storing back there and out of a lower line of sight for the residents there. I'd like the 50-foot buffer to remain intact, and I'd like bushes planted and a privacy fence. This way, we're not looking at it. Right now, there's a box truck that appeared on the property in the last week or so. So any window in my house, in the front of my house that I look out, I step out my front door off my front stoop, I'm looking at a box van. If there were trees that used to be there, were still there, I probably wouldn't see it. But most of them have been knocked down. And I don't know if you need to see pictures of this, but you know, this is over 200 feet from my house. So my neighbor to my left of me is closer. He probably has a worse view, along with my neighbor on the corner. So if you need to see pictures,
If you want it part of the record, just label them. Okay, on the record. Thanks.
that's what I see out any one of my front windows. And if you take a look at the second picture, you'll see what I'm looking at through the trees.
Thank you.
I have another picture over here I'll give you in a second, showing you that the material that has been dumped there over the years has been bulldozed, created a parking lot for cars who may or may not be leaking fluids, whether it's gasoline, oil, transmission fluid, etc. But as recently as the early spring, some mulch was being dumped. It appeared to be mulch in the northwest corner of the property, which I'm sure is well inside the buffer zone. And on Wednesday, July 3rd, there was actually a bulldozer and an open container truck in there removing that material. So I have pictures here showing the fresh mulch that was left behind after the bulldozer and the truck was full. And you can also see how high the wall of mulch is, or what's left of it, which is right on the property line, right on the property line. In addition to that, it's been mentioned that bulldozing has been occurring towards the sump. There's now an empty dumpster pushed up pretty much into the sump. So, like I said, I like to see the regular property reduced back to its original level. I'd like to see the buffer remain intact, or maybe even increase to 75 feet, along with plants, bushes, and a fence, a privacy fence. And I guess the only other questions I have is, you know, is the parking lot going to be paved if one is put there, and is it going to have the proper drainage?
That will be up to, I guess, what this board decides and what's in the town ordinance. I believe it's referred to in the ordinance, or whatever is in there, they have to comply with.
Okay. But to answer number one, yes, the neighborhood has been changed. This property has now become an eyesore, which you'll see in one of these pictures. I believe the request for reduction of the buffer from 50 to 10 feet is substantial, and it will continue to be make the neighborhood look unattractive. I'll be living where I'm living just about 30 years in about a month. I'm one of the original owners there. Most of the houses have been sold at least once, or not, if not twice. A lot of people that come to look for the houses for sale usually come up Jennifer Road, they turn around, they drive slowly down Jennifer Road, looking at the commercial property, and I know a number of people, when they've gotten down to the corner and see what's going on this property, have gone and looked elsewhere for a home. So I'm hoping that the board considers everything that's been said here tonight by the residents, and the right thing is done. Okay?
Thank you. If the rest of you guys, if you could, a lot of people keep coming up and saying the same thing over and over. If you could just limit it to new stuff, because it really just clouds the record, and it just makes our night drag on longer. If you could just give us stuff that would, you know, kind of pertain to the variances, it makes it a lot better.
Craig Brunges, 50 Amsterdam Road, Smithtown,
Spell your last name, please.
Brunjes.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I have yet to see a site plan. I have no idea what, you know, what he's planning on doing. You know, normally people show like drawings and stuff, what this property, what he's going to do. I haven't seen one. So if I can have a copy of what he's planning on doing.
Everything you can pick up at planning. I know that they had them available at the last.
Well, shouldn't he like represent on what he's going to plan on
Well,
doing?
they did at the last meeting.
Well,
we
I
had-
was here on the last meeting, but I guess I missed that. My main concern is this used car lot that, you know, he's planning on doing. You know, how is he going to move these cars back and forth to show people? How is he going to maintain them? How is he going to wash them? You know, if somebody goes to look at a car or whatever, are these cars going to be moved back and forth all day long? You know, he's going to have a showroom where, if you see this place of business, you know, to me it's an armpit. You know, it's disgusting. You know, when you go to McDonald's and you order #1, you get the hamburger. It doesn't look like the picture. So, you know, what he's planning on doing, I don't know what he's planning on doing. You know, the place, he's been there for 10 years. The overgrowth is terrible. The way he maintains the front of his property, you know, if he maintains his house the way he maintains his property.
Try not to get personal.
Well, I'm just saying how I feel.
I understand,
you
but
know,
it's not, this isn't
you
the
know,
place for it.
But, you know, that's how I feel, you know. I have a high ranch, and I sit on my deck, and I got to look at used cars. You know, first of all, it's a tree service business, not a used parking lot. So I don't know why these cars are even there right now, you know. How could this guy have tractor trailers, you know, unloading cars yesterday in the middle of Jericho Turnpike at 5 o'clock when he doesn't even have a business there? It's supposed to be a tree service business, not a used parking lot. And with that, I'll end.
Thank you. Have your name and address, please.
Okay, Michael DeRicco, 3 Jennifer Road,
Spell your last name, please.
DERICCO.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I just have a question. Currently, the zoning for the property is a car sales lot
I believe it's
allowed right
WSI.
now?
I believe it's WSI, and it's a permitted use in the WSI
All right,
zone.
is it all right to have it on a dirt ground? So if there's oil leaks, shouldn't it be paving or some type? Like, I'm more concerned right now. Is he operating, is he currently following the zone that the property?
What we're doing right now is trying to create the ability for them to
But
comply with the
usually you
ordinance.
create it before it happens. And right
Usually.
now, he's doing what he's trying to have created. It's backwards. Usually you go in and you say, I'd like to do A, B, C, and D, and you either say yes or no, and you can do A, B, no, C, and D, but he's doing A, B, C, and D, and he's basically has everyone, their hands are tied because he's functioning. He's doing exactly what he's trying to do legally. Is that?
Well, that's what this process is. Unfortunately, it doesn't always go the way that it should, and this is the way that it should, and that's what's happening now.
That's basically what I wanted to point out. I think this is just half-ass backwards. Usually, you know, you do A, B, C, and D, and, you know, that's basically what I wanted. I think it's a waste of everybody's time here.
Thank you.
What, you know, at this point, if somebody is not in ordinance of what the variances are, he shouldn't be allowed to do it until the variances are approved. So that's basically what I wanted to point out, okay?
Thank you. Are you all going to speak?
Yes.
Name and address, please.
Elizabeth Saraiva Patel, 7 Jennifer Road, Smithtown.
Spell your last name, please.
Saraiva-Patel.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm not going to go over all my neighbors, stated every point eloquently, so I won't go into it. My only concern is I wake up every morning, I look out my window, and I thought I'd be looking out into a beautiful neighborhood, and instead I'm looking into a used car sales a lot, which is not what I signed up for when I bought my house 5 years ago. I have 2 small children who like to play in their front yard, and lately I have said no. I don't know. I know you don't want to hear about environment, all the issues with the environment. It's not this department or whatever it is, but I am concerned. I want to know that my kids are safe. Also, my question is, if Mr. Prisco gets everything he's asked for, what precedents are you setting for future businesses? There are 2 lots available. Am I going to be, are they going to be operating then in my own backyard? So I ask you, please consider the neighbors, consider the residents, and not only the business end of things. And, please consider the families that live there and our property values. I live on Jennifer Road, and if, this continues, and if I was to sell my home, I would not be able to. And I don't want to impact Mr. Prisco's livelihood, but I ask that he not impact ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Have your name and address, please.
Yes, Glenn Romanelli, 52 Amsterdam Road,
Spell your last name, please.
Romanelli.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do. Again, I agree with virtually all of my neighbors' comments, so I won't repeat them here. But a few points I want to make. I know Mr. Prisco's lawyer showed aerial photos of the property with foliage and in winter without foliage, but that's when you look at a tree in winter from the top, it looks like there's a better buffer because you see all of its branches without leaves, but if you're on the ground, there is no buffer. It's a clear straight line through, especially on Jennifer Court, right into that property. I also want to reiterate that sump, although an adequate buffer to some extent, is triangular, and when it butts up on Jennifer Court, there is virtually no buffer. I want to implore to the board to not reduce the buffer zone less than 50 feet. It is critical that A, that buffer stays, and B, that it is heavily planted with foliage and or fences so that it prevents children from either falling into Mr. Prisco's property and getting injured or harmed, or just to create a horrible, terrible eyesore for that neighborhood. There was one of the, I'm not sure the gentleman's name there, but he raised a very good point that if the variance is given for a trucking station, that is a very wide variance. So there could be an unlimited amount of large tractor trailers, idling, gas trucks, garbage trucks, pretty much anything on wheels that could be backed up in there can be in there idling and causing pollution. And if there is no buffer zone, an adequate deep buffer zone, and there is not enough foliage or protection from the residential neighborhood, that's a horrible detriment. And one point that my neighbors haven't made really here is that if the variance is given to decrease this buffer zone on Mr. Prisco's property, it sets a precedent for every other business along Jericho Turnpike to have the board allow variance decreasing it down to 10 feet or 5 feet. That would be horrible for that entire neighborhood and all of the homes and properties and neighborhoods aligning up on Jericho Turnpike. So I implore the board to not decrease that buffer and keep it the same and make sure that Mr. Prisco puts as much foliage and protects the residential neighborhood and its children as best as he could. Thank you.
Have your name and address, please.
Yolanda Andrews, 49 Amsterdam Road.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. As my husband had mentioned when he was here last time, when we bought our house in March of 2002, there was a buffer clearly there. I actually didn't even realize how close we were to Jericho Turnpike when we bought the house. At the time, we had one child. He was 1 year old. Now we have 3. Our neighborhood is filled with children playing in the area, riding their bikes. This has become so undermined by pulling down all these trees and shrubbery. There is no buffer. There used to be a big hill. Now it's like almost flat. You can almost walk right into Mr. Prisco's property. The fence is falling down. There is nothing to protect our children and our family. This is basically my front yard. My front yard, when my children play, I'm concerned. I haven't even been letting them ride their bicycle. And it wasn't until the fall that I even realized, once the leaves were down, what he was doing for obviously a long time. Hiding these cars here or storing these cars, whatever he's doing. I know everyone has really spoken on basically, all the variances and all the things that he's fined for, and he doesn't pay the fines. But the concern is, as you can see from everyone here, we're emotional about this, and we're upset about this, and we're determined to fight it because we put our livelihoods into this neighborhood. We put our heart and soul and all of our money. This is not, if I wanted to live next to a used car lot, I would have bought a house on Middle Country Road. This is Smithtown. This is a beautiful neighborhood where the houses are $500,000 to $600,000. I pay $13,000 in property taxes. I don't want to look at used car lot. And not just that, it's the environmental things that have been brought up. I don't want to have, I don't want to be on 60 Minutes 10 years down the road finding out the environmental damage that happened and the cancer that was caused to all of the neighbors because of what he's doing. No one is objecting to him running a business. But number one, I don't understand how he can have a tree service and now a used car business. Is that legal that he has 2 businesses there? And please, we're begging you, don't take away the buffer. I mean, McDonald's was responsible. They built a buffer, and they put in fast-growing trees so that it was able to maintain the property of the neighborhood and the community. That's what we're asking for. Run your business, do things legally, get the variances that you need to get. Don't try to go above and beyond the law and the variances, but please just protect our neighborhood and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tremarco, if you're still with us. Did you hear some of the questions, or you want me to go over a couple of them?
Well, I'll try and answer some of them. For the question of was there ever a CO issued, yes, there was a CO issued on October 28th, 1947, and that was for a garage and service station, 50 by 25, and it has been a repair garage or a service station basically ever since, where I think the last owner before Mr. Prisco just did repairs, but he stored cars, and in the back they rented space to various contractors and equipment owners who stored their vehicles there. So for everybody's information, it was 1947 that the CO was issued, as I said, for a garage service station. A couple of the gentlemen indicated that Mr. Prisco, or one of his people, I guess, was crashing into and dumping, I guess, materials of some sort into the sump. That's absolutely not true. It's fenced. The sump is fenced. We didn't put a fence there yet, but the sump has been fenced since its inception. And we certainly didn't dump anything in there. And I don't know that the gentleman who said he saw it really could have the perspective of where he saw this machine as far as the sump boundary line is concerned. As far as environmental goes, there was environmental reports of Phase 1 and of Phase 2. It was done by Mr. Prisco. There was environmental cleanup, and it's a clean piece of property now.
I don't know that anybody can go to the town environmental department and see anything because it wouldn't be there. That would be something that my client did at the time in order to safely purchase the property. There was a tremendous amount of cleanup, and the people are right. There was a lot of stuff that had to be removed, broken down vehicles and all kinds of stuff, but that was all taken care of, including the spill, which happened in 1990, and they removed the tanks on 7/18/1991 and cleaned up the spill. And I can't think of anything else. Maybe
One of the other questions was, do you have an indication of the types and numbers of trucks and whether they'll be idling?
whether they'd be idling.
Yeah, one of the neighbors had asked if there'd be an operation similar to what goes on at, say, Home Depot or Lowe's, where you'd have idling trucks.
I'll have to ask Mr. Prisco, but he doesn't idle trucks, on.
If you could just
Come on up.
We get in about 7.
name and address, we just got to swear you in.
Frank Prisco, 189 Old Willets Path, Smithtown, New York.
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. The trucks, we meet at the shop about 7 o'clock in the morning. The trucks are started up. We leave and we go to work. We don't work on the property. We work out in the neighborhoods. And then the trucks come back at the end of the day, and they're shut off. So there are no trucks idling on the property.
And could you give us an indication moving forward what the types and a number of trucks that you would have on site?
The truck and trailer combination now, I probably have about maybe 12. If I added, it would just be a matter of whether business increased or contracts were obtained. I'd like to say, if you try to grow your business, I'd like to say a truck a year. Some years, I've gone with the economy, we've gone the last 3 without adding any vehicles.
So essentially, currently it's 12 trucks, and they're all basically tree service trucks?
There's some Mason trucks. Majority of them are tree trucks or equipment related, equipment trailers, skid steers. I don't own any bulldozers. I don't own any payloaders. The only ground machine I have is a skid steer.
Thank you.
I believe someone asked a question about an increase in the elevation of the property.
We submitted pictures. If you look at the pictures prior to when I bought the property, you'll see the property was 2-tier. And the property has the same elevation to the east and to the west. It's not wood chips, it's dirt. That's just the terrain.
Okay. Anything else? Bill, Steve? Oh, one of the other questions was Select Auto Group. Do you know the intentions or the nature of the operation?
Only to the extent that they store cars there, and there'll be an office in the building for the sale of used cars. Other than that,
So typical used car operation?
I'm sorry?
Typical used car operation with the showroom in the front building and then storage of vehicles in the back?
Right. Well, there'll be some storage in the front, just like the car dealers do, some display. The automobiles, the way we would like to set up the site is the automobiles, some, of course, in the front for display and around in the immediate back of the building. So the automobiles will be closer to Jericho Turnpike than I think is depicted on the site plan that David did. That's generally our intention.
Okay. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Regularly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Tramarko, I don't believe there's going to be a secret, so there'll be no decision until we get that. I believe that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our meeting for this evening.